She had a badge in her jacket and a gun on her thigh, and neither one was going to save her if Damian Cross figured out the truth before she got what she came for. Detective Sarah Mills straightened her dress in the reflection of a champagne flute and reminded herself of the only rule that mattered: undercover. Never fall for the mark. She was about to break that rule in the worst possible way, and somewhere across the room, so was he. 6 weeks earlier, her captain had slid a folder across the desk and a name across the table. Damian Cross, third generation. Smarter than his father, colder than his grandfather, and the department had nothing on him that would stick. Sarah's mentor, a 20-year veteran named Frank Reyes, was the one who signed off on sending her in alone. Frank had trained her since her first year on the force. He was the reason she made detective. What she didn't know was that Frank owed the wrong people money, the kind of debt that doesn't get forgiven, only managed, and Damian's organization had been managing it for him for 3 years in exchange for exactly this. A blind eye pointed wherever they needed it. The gala was her way in. Damian noticed her before she noticed him, which annoyed her more than it should have. She was watching the exits, not the room. "Most people here are watching me," he said, appearing with 2 drinks she hadn't asked for. "You're watching the doors." "Habit," she said. "Bad one in this business. Good one in mine." Their arrangement started simple. Scraps of intel for access. It wasn't supposed to turn into phone calls at midnight for no reason at all, and it wasn't supposed to turn into Sarah lying awake afterward, staring at her ceiling, hating how much she meant it when she told her captain the operation needed more time. She watched Damian end a business relationship with a supplier who'd shorted a shipment. No violence in the room that night, just a stillness in his voice that made 3 grown men refuse to meet his eyes. 2 days later, the supplier's warehouse burned down. She sat in her car outside her apartment and didn't write the report. Then she sat there another 20 minutes, hating herself for not writing it, before finally telling herself she needed more evidence first. She knew that wasn't the reason, she just couldn't stand to look at it yet. The night that changed things happened before the warehouse, not in it. Damian found her outside a restaurant after a dinner that was supposed to be business and hadn't been, not for either of them, for over an hour. It was raining lightly, the kind that doesn't ruin anything, and Sarah was quiet in a way he hadn't seen from her before. "You've been somewhere else all night," he said. "I'm trying to figure out who I'm supposed to be right now," she said, and it was closer to the truth than she'd let herself get with him before. "The person doing my job, or the person standing here?" Damian didn't answer right away. "My father used to say the job picks who you become, not the other way around. I spent 15 years believing him." He looked at her. "I don't anymore." She didn't ask what changed his mind. She already knew. And the knowing scared her more than anything Frank Reyes could do to her career. It was Sarah who cracked the case, not Damian. Going through wire transfers, she found the same account numbers surfacing in 2 unrelated investigations that had both collapsed under Frank's supervision. She didn't go to internal affairs first. She told herself there wasn't time. The truth was, she was afraid of what an investigation would surface about her, and that fear sat in her chest like a stone the entire drive to Damian's warehouse. "I think someone in my department is protecting you," she told him. "I think it's the person who trained me." What she didn't know was that Damian already had her file, handed to him by Frank 2 weeks earlier as a show of good faith, an offer to make her disappear quietly. Damian hadn't burned it. He hadn't handed it to his men either. He'd kept it locked in his desk, unable to decide what kind of man he wanted to be, until the night she walked in and handed him the truth before he ever had to take it from her. That was the moment he finally understood. And that same night, alone, he took the folder out, read her real name one more time, and burned it himself in a metal trash can behind the warehouse. Nobody watched him do it. He didn't need anybody to. "I've known who you are for 2 weeks," he said when she finished. Her hand moved toward her hip on instinct before she stopped herself. "Then why am I still breathing?" "Because Frank asked me to make sure you weren't." His jaw tightened. "Wanted it to look like a rival hit, said it would solve both our problems." "And you said no." "I said I'd think about it." He didn't soften that. "You should know that about me. I don't make good choices easily. Most nights, keeping my family alive means someone doesn't walk away. That's still true tonight. It's true about a shipment coming in Friday that I already know is going to get someone hurt, and I'm still letting it happen because the alternative gets 4 of my own men killed instead. I'm not telling you this so you'll forgive it. I'm telling you because you deserve to know exactly what you're choosing if you're choosing this." It wasn't romantic. It wasn't supposed to be. Frank noticed the silence first. When Damian didn't confirm the job was done, Frank did the fastest math of his life and went straight to the Kovac family, offering Sarah's identity and everything he knew about Damian's operation for protection and a clean exit. He wanted them both gone, made to look like the Mafia turning on itself, and he wanted his debt erased in the process. The trade was set for a shipping dock at midnight. Before Sarah left her apartment, she stood in front of the mirror and peeled the wire from under her collar, setting it on the counter, choosing to walk in as herself and nobody else for the first time in 6 weeks. Damian arrived with his brother Michael trailing 2 steps behind, the first time he'd let family anywhere near this. "You don't have to be here," Damian told him. Michael just checked his weapon and said nothing, which was its own kind of answer. Frank was already waiting when they arrived, and for a long moment nobody moved. The dock lights hummed overhead. Frank's badge caught the light, clipped to his belt beside a gun that was no longer pointed at the ground. "You should have stayed away from him," Frank told Sarah. "I could have protected you if you'd just done your job and walked away." "You mean if I'd let you keep selling us out to pay off whoever owns you?" Sarah said, her weapon steady, though her voice wasn't quite. Frank's eyes flicked to Damian, then to Michael, doing the math on numbers he didn't have. "And you had every reason to let her die tonight." "I did," Damian said. "I'm done being the kind of man who takes reasons like that." Nobody fired. For 3 long seconds it was just breathing and dock water and the distant sound of a container ship somewhere out past the light, and Sarah understood that whoever moved first was going to decide how this ended for all of them. Frank moved first. His shot went for Sarah, and Damian stepped into it without deciding to, the bullet catching his shoulder instead, the impact spinning him half a step before he hit the concrete. Michael's gun came up on instinct, but it was Sarah's shot that found Frank first, clean, and he was on the ground before he understood he'd lost. Sarah knelt beside Damian, pressing her jacket against the wound, hands shaking. "Why would you do that?" "Told you," he said, breathing hard, almost smiling. "Still learning how to make the good choices." She arrested him 3 days later, once he could stand. It wasn't mercy. It was the only way to keep him alive long enough to testify against a network that ran higher than Frank Reyes ever could have alone, and testifying was exactly what bought him 4 years instead of 20, a cooperation deal his lawyers built the same week his brother took over the parts of the business Damian refused to run anymore. Sarah paid her own price. Internal Affairs found the gaps in her reports within a month, and she spent the next year on desk duty, answering for every phone call she never logged. She kept her badge. She didn't keep her old life. She was waiting outside the gate the day he walked out. Neither of them has explained any of it to her captain yet. If you were Sarah standing on that dock with your mentor's gun aimed at your chest, would you have pulled the trigger? Tell me below. If this story kept you guessing until the very end, hit follow because next week's story is going to do it again. Where are you watching from tonight? Drop it in the comments. I read everyone.